Hey everybody, welcome to Living Room Labs. My name is Steve, and if you are just joining us or joining us for the first time, or you're checking out the video for this time, or you happen to stumble across it and you're like, hey, what's this? It's real simple. It's a little something we put out each week, 5-10 minutes of very simple, practical steps for you guys to take as a family to become more Jesus-centered. You got a lot of stuff swirling around in life. You've got a lot of things to handle as parents. You've got activities, you've got schools, you've got jobs and family obligations and just all kinds of other things going on. And it's so easy to just kind of put Sunday as Sunday. And this is just the thing that we do on a Sunday. And then the rest of the week, it's so easy for us to get lost in everything that's going on, lost in the hustle and bustle and even sometimes the mundane of what's going on. And we forget to put discipleship as a priority, to put Jesus as a priority in our families. So at Brookside Church, we are just so passionate about helping you guys as families make sure that you can put Jesus at the center and really giving just simple tips, tricks, suggestions. Sometimes I'm just lamenting about the things that I have a hard time with, and maybe you guys could share your wisdom with me. But really, it's just to open up some conversations about how we as families can be more Jesus-centered. And since we are coming upon a new month, which means for our kids' curriculum, we are actually coming on some new topics and some really cool things that we're going to be talking about with your kids. But today, I wanted to talk about something that I hate. I absolutely hate. And I'm going to guess that your kids hate it too. And that's waiting. I hate it. I'm probably one of the most impatient people. I can't stand just hanging around waiting for things to start. And my wife would tell you, there have been times where there's been a really important football game on, or a really important NASCAR race on, or something that I just really want to watch on TV, and it won't load. And the single worst word in the English language comes up, buffering, when it's buffering. And you're like, no, no, because, or it crashes, or it tells you that it's unavailable and you have no idea why. And, you have to, curse the very existence of the app that you're trying to use. Why? Because I expect absolute, perfect, on-demand, no waiting. I don't want to sit and hang out, right? If I'm driving, I don't want to wait at stoplights. I just want to go. And I get very annoyed. I just want to go. My wife gives me a hard time about this all the time. She's like, you just need to chill. I'm like, I do. You're right. You're absolutely right. I do need to just chill. And sometimes I'm like, it's no big deal. And I'm super laid back. But when I don't feel like waiting, it's bad. And I remember my grandma used to tell me, patience is a virtue. And she's right. It is. It is so incredibly important. And I know in our world, right, we live in a world of on demand. We live in a world of everything in an instant, where if we have to wait too long, I mean, it's funny because I can't stand when the internet takes too long. Yet, I was in high school when, I'm going to date myself here. I was in high school when we still had dial-up internet. And you had to wait for things. I think I mentioned this last time, is I remember putting things in the mail and you had to wait for things to come. We don't like to wait. It's terrible. And our kids are actually growing up in an on-demand, instant gratification kind of world. And that's not good. And it's hard because they live in this world, and we as parents have to now teach them in this world. And that becomes a really, really difficult thing to do, which brings me to, it's interesting when you look at scripture and you see on how much some of these great heroes of faith had to wait. And the very first thing that we're going to talk about with the kids is Abraham. And just how Abraham had to wait, right? Abraham wanted a family. Abraham wanted kids. Abraham wanted his legacy to live on. That's it's fairly normal, right? That's what every great Jewish father would have wanted, right? His legacy and the namesake to live on so he could have a son. And he waited forever. And I think for most people, you get to a certain age. I mean, Abraham was, 100 years old. And, now you get to a certain age, you just kind of say, you know what, that's just probably not going to happen. And my guess is that Abraham got to a point where he was just like, you know what, it's probably not going to happen. I'm bummed. It's not going to happen. And then here God comes along and says, no, it's going to happen. And then he has to wait. So not only is he maybe resolved himself to say, you know what, it's probably not going to happen. It's a bummer, but it's not going to happen. And we'll have it happen another way because his wife's just way too old to have kids. So let's do this differently. And, he has a son through Hagar and it works out differently. And it's like, okay. And that still wasn't a good idea. All the while, God is telling him, hey, listen, I'm making you a promise. You're going to be a great nation. You're going to have lots of kids and grandkids and all these kids. And it's just going to be awesome. You have this huge family. It's going to be amazing. And he's looking at God going, I want to believe you, but I'm not sure how that's going to work because, I'm super old. My wife's super old. And I don't know if you know, but you made us, so you probably should know, but that's not really much of a thing. And yet God continues to make him wait. And that waiting does something because they continue to have faith. They continue to be together so that they had the chance to have kids. They continued to believe that God is going to do something. And it's just such an incredible story of just faithfulness in patience. And that's where we start off the kids. And the question I want to address today is just how do we teach that kind of level of patience to our kids? How do we model that kind of patience to our kids so that they catch it, right? We can't just teach it. They have to catch it in an on-demand instant gratification world, right? How do we do that? Because just trying to navigate that and trying to say, okay, I don't totally understand why he chose to believe, and I don't understand why he had to wait so long, and why did God make him wait so long? And there's so many questions that swirl around. I know my kids have asked those kinds of questions, and my guess is as you guys have conversations with your kids about some of these topics, they're going to have some of the same questions. So I was curious because I'll be honest, I struggle a little bit with just trying to get our kids to have patience, and I'm sure you do too. And part of that is because our kids are kids. They just don't have any patience yet because you're not born with those. You're born as a sinner, therefore you're born without patience. I'm pretty sure that's how that would work. And so I always laugh because on one level, our kids just don't have them, and they have to learn what that looks like and it be modeled for them so they can mimic that good behavior. But on the other end, young kids don't have the right kind of concept of time yet. So they don't, when you say, so when a 4 or 5 year old, you say, something's next week or 5 days from now, or Christmas is in a few months or whatever it is, they don't really, they may understand what you're saying and the words that you're using. And they understand that it's a time that's in the distance, but they don't know what that means, and they don't understand how that works. So it's hard for them to conceptualize that kind of time. So it's hard for them. I don't quite understand how this works. So you got really two things working against you. Is one, their brains just aren't developed enough, and two, they're sinners. So we have that going for us. So yay for us. Okay, so. But because my son does this all the time is I'll give you just an example. So my wife and I have a Lego set. I'm a big Lego fan, and we have a Lego set that we bought together as kind of a cheap date night that we would pick away at for a few nights. And the idea was, hey, let's buy this cool Lego set. We'll work on it together. We'll talk. We'll hang out. And it was great. And like I think all of us do, we got about halfway through it. And now it sits incomplete on a shelf underneath the TV. And every day I look at it and go, gosh, we should finish that. And finally, my boy, he loves Legos. And he said to me last night, so Dad, when are you going to finish that? And I said, well, I don't know, maybe Mom and I will work on it tonight. I say, like, every time he asks me that, I say the same thing. Maybe Mom and I will work on it tonight. And then we don't because we forget. And so finally last night, he's had enough. He's like, you say this all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I know. He goes, so I'm just going to build it for you. And I'm like, well, probably shouldn't do that. I said, but I'll make you a deal. If we don't finish it, this is Tuesday night. I said, if we don't finish it by Saturday night, Sunday after church, you can build it. And his eyes get real big, like, what? I said, you go ahead, you can do it. So I put him to bed, kiss him, pray, do all this stuff for bedtime. I go downstairs, my wife and I are sitting there watching TV, and he comes out of his room. Yeah, Eli, what can I do for you? He says, when's Sunday? And, I said, well, it's 4 days, 4 or 5 days, 4 days. And he goes, okay, how many sleeps is that? Like, he has to put it into a concept that he can understand, right? So it took him probably 4 minutes of conversation for him to really wrap his head around, okay, I have to go to bed this many times for that to happen. And I can guarantee you when I get home today, he's going to ask me about it as if it's tomorrow. It's just what's going to happen. So it's really, really hard for our kids. Plus, compounding on that, he's fixated. He wants to build the Legos, and he'll stop at nothing to make sure that he can do that. So it's going to be a little bit on the crazy side. So we struggle with it. I'm sure all of you struggle with it. And sometimes when our kids lack patience, it causes us to run out of patience because we're just like, nah, okay, stop it. So I scoured the internet. I did a bunch of research. I wanted to find out, what are some of the things that other people do, tips and tricks and ideas to help not only teach or help kids catch patience, but also doing it in a way that is aligned with what the scripture says, right? If we're talking about the same kind of faith that Abraham had, the same kind of patience that he had, then how do we teach our kids to have that kind of patience? Not just be patient, but have that kind of faith-filled, God-fearing, God-anticipating faith or patience that will help them see God work in their lives, right? It's not just about having patience. It's about being able to wait on God, wait on Jesus to do something, and then being able to reflect on that and see how God moved so that we can take that kind of knowledge into the future when we have other opportunities to wait and bigger things and bigger opportunities and just different things that God's doing in our lives, right? To teach our kids what it means to not just be patient, but to be patient and wait on God's timing. That's important, right? That's another key element to being Jesus-centered. So, couple things that I found. There's a lot out there. And if you do a Google search, you're going to find, 23 ways of make your kids being patient, and 5 ways, and 3 ways, and 6 ways. It's too many ways. So I boiled it down to 3 that I think line up well with scripture. Here they are. Number 1, keep it positive. It's really easy because we talk about modeling patience, right? It's really easy for us to lose patience with their lack of patience. That's not good modeling. And I catch myself with this all the time since I already struggle with patience myself. And what did my mom used to tell me? Don't pray for patience because you're going to get opportunities to be patient. So welcome to kids. So, but keeping it positive really helps us to tell our kids, listen, this is something good, right? You're going to get something really good at the end. And being patient is an exciting thing. And there's anticipation built up there. And we can be excited for what's going to happen. It's the kind of feeling we get around Christmas all the time, right? There's an excitement that builds up or moments before, the weeks and months leading up to birthdays, right? It's that excitement that builds and the anticipation that builds. And yes, they can't wait, but they're almost the waiting almost supersedes the actual event, right? It almost is more exciting. And that's what keeping it positive is all about, right? So we can wait in anticipation for what God is going to do in our lives and be really excited. So when we're forced to wait, we can flip the script and say, oh my gosh, but guess what? I know that God is going to do something really cool. I know that he's got something really cool planned for me. I know that he's going to just, show himself in a way that just blows my mind. That's really, really exciting. So I can do that. I can wait for that. And I can anticipate that. And then celebrate it when it actually comes on. So number 1, keep it positive. Number 2, help our kids experience the wait. There's no substitute, like what mom said, right? When you want patience, you're going to get opportunities to be patient. It's the only way you learn it is by actually experiencing it. It's one of those things in life that we cannot just be told, we have to actually experience. So instead of us as parents being impatient about their lack of patience, be hopeful and happy that they are learning what it means to be patient. And in that struggle, in that wrestling in their mind and them trying to figure it out, and sometimes even getting upset because things aren't going the way they think, or they're sick and tired of waiting, or whatever it is, that, hey, guess what? You get to wait. And waiting like that and being patient builds character. It builds strength. It actually can build our faith in Jesus in ways that we had not anticipated. Because the great thing about waiting on God is that God always fulfills his promises. So we know that what God says is going to transpire into truth down the road. If it doesn't look like it, or we're waiting for him to do something, right? We know that he's going to fulfill his promises. That's who he is, because he's God. We know that. We can trust that. So we know that even in our waiting, we know it's going to turn out the way he wants it to for our good. So we're okay. That's great. So we can experience the wait in a hopeful fashion. And the only way that we're going to do that and build faith in that is by actually going through it. So number one, keep it positive. Number two, experience the wait. And then as parents, to model the thing I think I love about waiting on God the most is that he keeps his promises, and so should we. And I know it seems kind of simple, like, well, yeah, duh. But let's be honest. As parents, how many times do we tell our kids maybe, or we put off something because we're not sure, we don't really want to tell them no, so then they're waiting for something to happen. We don't really maybe realize they're waiting for it to happen, but they're actually waiting for it to happen, and then guess what? It's not going to happen, and then it's perceived as though we didn't keep our promise, even though we really never made the promise. We just weren't clear. Happened to me as a kid. I'm sure I've done it to my kids several times. It's not. We don't do it meaningful. We don't do it maliciously. We just do it because life is happening, and it's hard to make fast decisions when your kids are demanding us to make decisions quickly. But if we're clear on what we are promising our kids, and then we make them wait, and then we deliver on that promise, it makes the waiting easier down the road and in the long run, because they'll understand why they're waiting. So as parents, to model what it's like to have a relationship with Jesus, we need to keep our promises. So keeping it positive, experiencing the wait, and keeping our promises as parents. Those are the three that I think are probably the most helpful. As always, as you try them out, and I would encourage you to try them out. I mean, nothing is foolproof. Nothing is like, oh, this is a perfect solution to all the things that we're trying to do. But at the same time, I have found that it's the practical stuff that helps the most. And hey, as you're watching, if you've got ideas, and hey, you know what, this has worked, whether it's this video or another one we've done or whatever, on different things that you have done to make your home more Jesus-centered. We would love to hear what those things are. So as you see these things on social media, put them in the comments. Let us know what things you've done and how you're keeping your home Jesus-centered. If you have questions or thoughts or things that you'd love us to address in future videos, we'd love to hear that as well. So we would love to hear from you. As always, we continue to pray for you guys, and as you make your home more Jesus-centered, as you pursue him, as you help your kids pursue him, and as you guys as a family make an incredible difference for the kingdom. We'll see you guys next time.